I never thought ordering dinner could turn into a criminal investigation. It started as a normal Friday night. Laptop closed, stomach growling, me finally ready to enjoy a quiet meal after a week of endless work. The hardest choice I expected to make that evening was between medium rare or well done. But instead of a delivery driver at my door, I got a neighborhood war I never signed up for. One simple steak order somehow became a violation of community standards. Within days, I was tangled in a ridiculous feud with the one person who believed she ruled our entire neighborhood, Sheila Watkins. The self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. All I wanted was dinner. What I got was stolen food, fake fines, and eventually, flashing police lights right outside my house. I wasn't trying to start a fight, but by the end of it all, someone was in handcuffs, and I'll give you a hint. It wasn't me. I just wanted my steak dinner, but my neighbor ended up in handcuffs. Let me start from beginning. When I moved there 3 months ago, I thought I'd found my slice of peace. Quiet streets, friendly faces, and rules meant to keep things nice. I didn't realize those same rules, or rather, one woman's obsession with them, would soon turn my dinners into evidence for a criminal report. I work from home as a software developer. That means my life revolves around screens, caffeine, and takeout. Cooking isn't my strong suit, unless burnt toast counts as cuisine, so food delivery is my lifeline. It all began on an ordinary Tuesday night. I had just wrapped up a brutal 3-day coding sprint. My brain was fried, my eyes felt like sandpaper, and my stomach was begging for something that didn't come from a vending machine. I decided to treat myself. A juicy steak from my favorite steakhouse across town. The good stuff. I placed the order, tracked it like it was a rocket launch, and waited for that sweet notification. Driver has arrived. Except, no one knocked. 5 minutes passed, 10, still nothing. I refreshed the app, expecting maybe a delay. Instead, my heart sank. There was a photo of my order, neatly placed on a porch that wasn't mine. I zoomed in, confused. 3 houses down. Teal front door. Neatly trimmed hedges. It looked familiar. That's when I realized the food was sitting in front of my neighbor's house, Sheila Watkins. Now, I didn't know much about Sheila then, except for the whispers. Every neighborhood has that one person who seems to live for control. Sheila was ours. She was the HOA president, and she took the title very seriously. People said she once fined a family for using the wrong color mulch. Another time, she allegedly made a kid scrub chalk drawings off his driveway because it disrupted the uniform aesthetic. So yeah, I already knew she was intense. But I didn't think she'd ever steal a steak dinner. Still, I figured it was an honest mistake. Maybe the delivery guy mixed up the addresses. So I walked down the street trying to stay polite and knocked on her door. She opened it with this overly sweet smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. The smell of grilled steak hit me instantly. My steak. Hi, Sheila, I said, trying to stay calm. I think my food got dropped off here by mistake. Her expression didn't change. Oh, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, she said, her tone syrupy but sharp. The HOA has a strict policy against food deliveries after 6 p.m. on weekdays. It's in the community guidelines. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? She folded her arms. It's for safety and cleanliness reasons. We can't have drivers idling or attracting pests. I've already disposed of the food properly. You'll receive a written notice tomorrow, and then... She smiled, a small smug smile, and closed the door. I just stood there, stunned. I had just lost a $75 dinner to a woman quoting a rule that didn't even make sense. That night, I ordered a pizza out of spite, extra cheese, double pepperoni, just to make a point. But when it arrived, I ate it with this boiling mix of confusion and anger. The next morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. HOA letterhead, official signature, all of it. A violation notice. According to the letter, I had broken Section 12.3, Prohibition of Late Deliveries. Except, when I looked through the HOA handbook I got at closing, there was no Section 12.3. I tried emailing the HOA board for clarification. Every response was automated. Dead ends. So I decided to let it go. It wasn't worth a war, not over one stolen dinner, but Sheila wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, things got weird. Every time I ordered food, it somehow vanished. I'd get notifications saying my order had been delivered, only to find nothing on my porch. Once, a driver called me saying, "Hey, your wife said she'll take it from here." I don't have a wife. Another time, a restaurant called to confirm I'd canceled my order. I hadn't. It was like Sheila had a sixth sense for deliveries. I started to realize she wasn't just following HOA rules, she was watching me. It became a twisted pattern. I'd order, she'd intercept, and I'd end up hungry. Over time, the total loss added up, nearly $300 in meals. That's when I hit my breaking point. One evening, I saw her standing outside when a delivery car pulled up. She was wearing gardening gloves, clipboard in hand, acting like a parking inspector. The driver hesitated, confused. She waved him over like she was running a checkpoint. "Community regulations require me to accept all deliveries," she said, voice crisp and official. I stood at my window, watching her take my food again. I swear it was like she got a thrill out of it, like taking someone's dinner made her feel powerful. That night, I decided enough was enough. I installed a video doorbell. Then another camera facing the street. I started documenting everything. Screenshots, receipts, timestamps, delivery confirmations. I built a file so detailed it could have been used in court. I also started talking to other neighbors. Quietly, carefully. Turns out, I wasn't the only one dealing with her. Nonsense. The Petersons told me she'd ordered their tree cut down while they were on vacation because it shed too many leaves. Garcia said she fined them daily until they erased their daughter's chalk drawings from the driveway. No one dared stand up to her because she'd been HOA president for nearly a decade, and she loved reminding everyone of it. That's when I realized this wasn't about food. It was about control. So, I came up with a plan. If she wanted to play games, I'd set the board myself. One Friday evening, I placed an order from the most expensive French restaurant in town. The total came to just over $520, truffle risotto, wagyu steak, lobster, and 2 bottles of fine Bordeaux. It was ridiculous, but I wasn't buying food. I was baiting a trap. I made sure my cameras were running, every angle covered, and then I waited. The delivery car pulled into the cul-de-sac right on time. My heart was racing, part anger, part adrenaline. I could see her house from my window, lights still on, and right on cue, the front door opened. There she was. Sheila Watkins, Oakwood Estate's self-appointed queen, marching out in her house slippers like a soldier reporting for duty. She intercepted the delivery driver halfway up my walkway. "Community regulations require me to accept all deliveries," she repeated, the same line as before. Through the doorbell camera, I watched the driver hesitate, uncertain. Then nervously, he handed her the food. She smiled and strutted back to her house like she'd just won something. But this time, she had no idea what she'd walked into. Instead of storming down the street like I wanted to, I took a breath and picked up my phone. "Non-emergency police line," I said. "I'd like to report a theft." When the dispatcher asked for details, I explained everything. The history, the evidence, the total cost. "Over 500? She asked. "Yes, ma'am," I replied. "That's felony theft." My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from relief. For weeks, she'd made me feel powerless in my own home. But now, the rules she hid behind were finally going to turn on her. 20 minutes later, 2 patrol cars rolled quietly into our cul-de-sac. No sirens, just soft flashing lights reflecting off the perfect lawns of Oakwood Estates. From my window, I watched as the officers approached her house. The door opened, and even from a distance, I could tell she wasn't smiling anymore. And right there, in that moment, I knew this was only the beginning. When the police cruisers pulled into the cul-de-sac that night, the entire street seemed to hold its breath. No sirens, just soft flashes of blue and red light dancing across the rows of identical houses. The air felt heavy, like even the crickets knew something big was about to happen. I stood by my front window, phone in hand, doorbell camera still recording. I'd spent weeks watching Sheila Watkins act like she owned the neighborhood, patrolling lawns, writing fake violations, and stealing my dinners like she was enforcing some twisted version of law and order. But tonight, she was about to find out what real rules looked like. The officers walked up her driveway, their flashlights cutting across her perfectly trimmed hedges. A few seconds later, her door opened. Even from where I stood, I could see the change in her face. That split second where confidence turned into confusion. Sheila's voice floated faintly through the night, sharp and defensive. I couldn't make out every word, but I didn't need to. I knew her type. She was probably explaining that she was the HOA president, that she had authority, that she was simply maintaining community standards. The officers listened patiently, but one of them kept glancing at the notepad in his hand. After a few minutes, he nodded, said something short, and both of them turned toward my house. When I opened the door, I tried to look calm, but my heart was pounding hard enough to shake the floor. "Evening, sir," one of the officers said. "We spoke to your neighbor. She claims she was acting in her capacity as HOA president to confiscate food deliveries that violate community rules." I almost laughed. "Yeah, that's not a thing." I pulled up the neighborhood bylaws on my phone and handed it to him. There's nothing about delivery restrictions. And here's the footage. I showed him my doorbell recordings. One clip after another, each time stamped, each showing Sheila intercepting drivers and walking off with my food like it was her daily routine. The officer's expression grew more serious with every second of video. "And the total cost of tonight's order?" he asked. $523, I said. "That includes a bottle of Bordeaux and Wagyu steak." "You can see the receipt here," he nodded slowly. "Over 500, that's grand larceny in this county." My stomach twisted. I wanted justice, not destruction. But this wasn't just about a stolen dinner anymore. It was about someone who had spent years bullying people under the guise of rules. The officer told me to wait while he went back to her house. I stepped out onto the porch, the night suddenly very still. A few neighbors had peeked through their blinds, curtains shifting in the glow of the police lights. Oakwood Estates wasn't used to drama. The biggest scandal before this was someone's mailbox being the wrong shade of beige. 10 minutes passed before the officer returned. His tone was calm but final. "Sir, your neighbor is being placed under arrest for felony theft." I looked past him just in time to see Sheila on her front step, arms behind her back, wrists cuffed. Her expression was wild, disbelief, outrage, maybe even fear. She tried to speak, but the officers guided her gently toward the patrol car. For a moment, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt weirdly sad. It's strange seeing someone who's made your life miserable suddenly lose all their power in an instant. But I also knew she'd earned it. When the police car pulled away, the cul-de-sac slowly came back to life. Lights flickered on in windows, doors creaked open, and whispers rippled down the street like wind through grass. That night, I sat at my kitchen table looking at my untouched food and the blinking camera feed on my phone. For weeks, she'd tried to control everything: who could park where, who could get mail, even who could eat dinner. And now? Her whole world had finally cracked. The next morning, I found out just how deep that crack ran. An emergency HOA meeting had been called. The notice was slid under everyone's door before sunrise. Urgent, community meeting tonight. Attendance strongly encouraged. When I arrived that evening, the community center was packed. Every chair filled, people lining the walls, the air buzzing with nervous energy. You could tell this wasn't just about me. It was years of frustration boiling over. At the front sat the remaining board members, trying their best to look composed. But they couldn't hide the tension. Everyone was waiting for one thing: the fall of Sheila Watkins. The vice president, Howard, a quiet, silver-haired accountant, stood up first. "As most of you know," he began, clearing his throat, "Mrs. Watkins has been charged with felony theft following an incident last night." A murmur rippled through the room. He continued, "In light of these events, the board has voted unanimously to remove her from her position as HOA president, effective immediately. Furthermore, we'll be conducting a full audit of HOA finances and practices from the last 3 years." That line, audit, hit like a thunderclap. You could feel the collective exhale, that mix of relief and disbelief. Then, one by one, neighbors stood to speak. The Petersons talked about how Sheila had a tree cut down on their property while they were away. The Garcias described the day she threatened to fine their kids for sidewalk chalk drawings. An elderly woman mentioned that Sheila once wrote her up for having non-compliant wind chimes. For 10 years, everyone had stayed quiet. Now the floodgates were open. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't give a speech. I didn't need to. I just pulled up a clip on my phone and played it through the microphone, Sheila intercepting my delivery, smiling proudly as she carried my food home like a trophy. The room went dead silent. Then someone laughed. Then another. Before long, the whole room was chuckling, not cruelly, but in that disbelieving, I can't believe she actually did that kind of way. Howard closed the meeting with a short, almost apologetic smile. Thank you all for coming. I think we can agree Oakwood Estates could use a fresh start. And for the first time since moving there, I felt like maybe that was possible. 2 days later, I was back at my desk, half working, half daydreaming, when I heard a knock at my door. When I opened it, I froze. It was Sheila, but not the version I knew. Gone was the polished bob and the blindingly white smile. Her hair was flat, her makeup faint, her posture small. She clutched a designer purse like it was keeping her upright. My attorney says I need to make restitution, she said quietly, handing me an envelope. This covers everything you lost, plus interest. I took it but didn't open it. Thank you, I said simply. She lingered, eyes darting to the ground. You don't understand, she said finally. I've given everything to this community, everything, and now I could lose my real estate license. My career, my reputation. Over a misunderstanding, there it was, the same word she'd used that first night when she stole my steak dinner. Was it worth it? I asked softly. All that effort? All that control over something so small? Her lip trembled. For the first time, Sheila Watkins looked fragile. Not powerful, not proud, just human. I was trying to keep things perfect, she whispered. People don't appreciate order until it's gone. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't. She started to speak again, but then my phone buzzed. A cheerful chime. My new food delivery app notification. I glanced down, then back at her. Excuse me, I said with a faint smile. That's my lunch delivery. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe irony. And then without another word, she turned and walked away. When I opened the door a few minutes later, my order was sitting safely on the mat, untouched. Just where it was supposed to be. As I carried it inside, I couldn't help but think about everything that had happened. Sheila had spent years chasing control, mistaking fear for respect. And me? I just wanted to eat in peace. That night, as I sat down with my meal, I laughed quietly to myself. In a neighborhood obsessed with order, it took a stolen steak to finally shake things up, and for the first time since moving in, Oakwood Estates felt human again.